Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Akshay.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Who was that?
I'm Kirti, sir.
Good morning, Kirti. So that I can call you by name. That's the only reason I asked. No other.
No problem, sir.
Yeah. Okay, there seems to be some happy news for you people. Though I don't know. There is an article in the newspaper today which says that all educational institutions have been declared closed from 27th April, which happens to be tomorrow, to 31st of March. It says schools, colleges, but there is no mention if it is applicable to universities. At one level, it says all educational institutions. These announcements are usually suitably vague. And even if that applies to universities, I think a separate order may have to come from the office of the registrar. And if the order comes from the office of the registrar, then I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see how it unfolds. But we might be heading towards a vacation. The COVID situation is pretty bad. It's really very bad. I hope all of you are taking care of yourselves. Okay, shall we get going?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Righto. So I was saying that we look at the greatest influence on Plato. Well, some might argue that Parmenides is a bigger influence, uh, but I would definitely argue that it is Pythagoras who is a bigger influence on Plato, because Pythagoras, as we know him, is a mathematician, but he is also a philosopher. He's also a philosopher, and he used mathematics as a way to understand the world. And sorry, in the use of logic and reasoning. Reasoning here is rationality, using your rational faculty. In the use of logic and reasoning, he made use of the uh, deductive method, which he used extensively in geometry. Okay, he used the deductive method extensively in geometry, and he applied the same method to come to conclusions about life. What you should remember, however, is that he also used the occult in his philosophy. Does anyone know what occult, what it stands for?
I think Chetamadi, Vanavati.
Yeah, that is the occult. You're right, but Chetabadi, Banamati. So usually to take the, I mean, my lectures are very boring, right? So
No, sir.
I'll tell you one small little story. My father was somebody who didn't believe in all these superstitions and all this kind of things. So much so that when he passed away, uh, it's not still 2 years. When he passed away, he had written a will that his body be donated to a medical college, and we all followed his lead, and we all also wrote wills to the same effect. So he didn't believe in he believed in God, but he didn't believe in puja and all that kind of stuff. But funnily, he once told me, uh, I had a very different relationship with my father. He used to treat me like a friend. So he once told me, when I asked him, you really don't believe in all these uh, things which are supposed to be supernatural, like God and all that? He says, I have not seen proof of all those things, but I do believe in God. Though I don't believe in prayers, and though they come from a Brahmin family, starting with my grandfather and his brothers, we've forsaken Brahmanism. None of us follow anything. For us, festivals are only those occasions where we sit and eat nice food. That's about it. No pujas, nothing. So I was just having a conversation, but he said there was once and twice he saw two things, or twice he saw things which made him wonder if the occult is true. So he said while he was on deputation to the Panchayat Raj, and while he was posted at Narsampet, so he had heard there were complaints that at a nearby lake or pond or whatever, people were washing clothes, and they were catching fire even as they were washing clothes. So he said, as a BDO, he was told this, and so he went there, and he says he actually saw a dhobi put a cloth in the water, pull it out, and the thing burnt. Fully wet, dripping cloth. It says it burnt in front of his eyes. So he says he saw that. So that was one instance. And another instance he talked about was that I believe in Narayanguda here in Hyderabad, there was a house on which every day at 7 p.m. now you have those kankar stones, granite. Those stones used to be thrown for 15 minutes. Initially, I believe they thought it was pranksters, but he had asked for since he was in the administration, he had asked the police to look at all the nearby areas to see if anybody is doing it, and they didn't find anybody. And finally, that family that lived in that house vacated the house and went away, and they razed it to the ground. So he does say that these are two things he can't explain. He didn't say, I believe. Well, but the real meaning of occult, the stories of my father apart, is that which is not visible or tractable to the senses. That is what it actually means, occult. So let me give you a horrible example now. If you get a stool test, I'm not talking about stool on which we talk about, I'm talking about the other stools, feces. You do get a report sometimes which says presence of occult blood, which means it's not visible to the naked eye, but only when it is put in the what should we say, only when it is put in the microscope, when the sample, then you get to see it. An electron microscope, that too, not an ordinary microscope. So it's visible only in that. It's called occult blood. So the occult is that which is not visible. And Pythagoras had used the occult very, very, what should I say? He used it uh, very frequently in his philosophy, and quite a bit of his philosophy was actually based in the occult. For example, if you talk about what he means by the occult, he believed in the life after death, which most religions do, but especially Hinduism does it. Hinduism as it is known today. No, Sanatana Dharma is different. So he believed in the life after, what is this? He also believed in the existence of a soul. Okay, and for him, death was soul leaving the body, and he believed in the idea of rebirth. Now, all this will come under occult. Okay, all this is occult because nobody knows what the soul is. Even today, nobody can explain the soul. Nobody knows what happens to us after we die, right? And nobody knows if there is a thing called rebirth. But he believed in all this. Okay. And interestingly enough, these are very similar beliefs to what we find in ancient India and also now. If you look at his theories, the occult doesn't end only here. There is one very important thing, concept that he used in real life, and that was the formation of crypts. Before I go further, let me add here that he believed that only it's not going to happen, is it? That only human being possess a soul. That's what he believed. Okay, so let me not write everything that I'm talking and waste time. So he believed that only human beings possessed souls. Animals did not. And interestingly enough, this is the belief that you will find in the Abrahamic religions. The Abrahamic religions are, like I told you, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They also believe that whether they believe in rebirth or not is not very clear, but they believe that the soul is the exclusive preserve of the human being. But if you look at the ancient Indian traditions, all the various different philosophical traditions, I don't call them religious because they were not religious. Sanatana Dharma, Jainism, Buddhism, and any other thing that was there at that time. There were a number of cosmologies in ancient India. All of them believed that everything in the world was a soul. So, sorry about that. Uh, Perhaps this whole thing about the terminology used by Adi Shankaracharya, for a moment we can use it here. Okay. Both of them for him possess souls. The universe, in fact, is a life system, right? So he believed that the tattva, the substance of both the Brahman and the Atman were the same. And therefore, the Atman could become one with the Brahman after death. Okay, so I gave you that example, I think, about clay and various objects that you make with clay. But ultimately, each of the objects might look different from the other, but they are all clay. So that is the Brahman. So as per the Sanatana Dharma belief, whether you are Advaita of the Shankaracharya variety, there are other Advaitas as well. Or if you are Visishta Advaita of the Ramanujacharya variety, or you are the Dvaita of the Madhvacharya variety, if you look at all these things, they all say that the whole universe is a soul, and therefore every grain of sand also has a soul in it. Leave alone living things anyway have souls. What we consider not non-living are also, according to these people, they are definitely souls. They are not non-living. This is what you find in all the major philosophies of ancient India, that everything in the world is alive, nothing is non-living. There might be small differences in the articulation about how they look at the liveness of the universe, but it is seen as a life system. Okay, and I told you no better uh, example of this than astrology. And I also tell you, astrology has got a very bad name because of the fact that there are the practitioners of astrology are bad. If I'm a lousy political science teacher, which I am, it doesn't mean that political science is a bad subject. It's just that it's being taught to you by a person who doesn't know it very well. Okay, so that doesn't make political science a bad subject. Similarly, astrology is not alchemy. Okay, just because somebody is not able to make a proper use of it or is not able to basically understand it properly doesn't mean that there's something wrong. So in school we were told astrology is alchemy and astronomy is science. I don't believe so. Astrology is a different science. Astronomy has nothing to do with astrology. It is another science, a science in its own right. It's just that both of them deal with astral bodies. Okay, but the astrology example is to tell you that your fate and what happens to you at different points of time in your life are those things that basically uh, are governed by planets, the position of the planets at the time of your birth and the place of your birth. Okay, uh, so they are all governed by those things. Okay, the latitudes, the time, the longitude, all these things matter, right? So please, therefore, don't think that astrology is alchemy. We have bad astrologers. That's a different issue. Like we have bad teachers of political science like me. You shouldn't tarnish the subject. So ours is a more evolved kind of a thinking compared to uh, the Greeks. But let's get back to the Greeks. Mm, uh, so what we do find is that there is this idea that human beings are uh, born with souls, and Pythagoras talked about the formation of crypts. Has anyone heard of a crypt?
No,
Anyone?
sir.
No, sir.
No? Nobody does word puzzles, crosswords as they are called, crossword puzzles. which preceded Sudoku. Sudoku is with numbers. Crossword puzzles is done with words. Nobody does it? I'm very happy to hear that because I'm terrible. I just can't do crossword puzzles. I just don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing Sudoku. Okay, my mother is addicted to Sudoku and she wants me to do Sudoku. I tell her, thank you very much. You do what you want, I won't. Anyway, a crypt, those of you who may have done puzzles, you would have heard of this term, cryptic clues. Okay, in crossword puzzles, clues are given so that you can guess what word will fill up the blanks. Okay, so there are some direct clues, open clues. Then the other ones are called cryptic clues because a cryptic clue is hidden, which means it's a double puzzle. Okay, it's a double puzzle because you are basically, you first have to find out where that thing is hidden, the clue. First, you have to find the clue that is hidden, and then you find the word that is hidden. Okay, so it's a double thing. This comes from the Greek word crypt, and crypt, according to the Greeks, is something hidden, not just in terms of uh, words and things like that, but it also applies to places. Okay, and Pythagoras created hidden places called crypts, and these places were where people met secretly. Okay, people met secretly. This was a crypt. Now, the best part was these crypts were not outside of a town. I mean, rather the police. What am I saying? Town. I'm sorry. Okay, they were not outside somewhere in a jungle, in some cave. No, these crypts were very much. What is wrong with me? In places inhabited by people. And Pythagoras is supposed to have created not one crypt, but several different kinds of crypts with several different people. So he formed different crypts with different people. So in one crypt, Akshay Puneet will be there along with Rachana. He'll have one crypt, and then he'll have another crypt with Kirti and 1XBZKLPTFNMN. Somebody like that joins every day. So this person, okay, and Aishwarya also is a part of a crypt, but she always comes late. So she's trying to make sure that people don't see her when she's entering a crypt. Okay, so Aishwarya will be in another crypt. So there'll be different people in different crypts. Okay, and Pythagoras, of course, is there in all these crypts. Now, why he did that is a matter of conjecture. Nobody knows why he created so many different crypts with so many different people. That is one of the things that we have no certain knowledge about. But we do know that he had crypts, and these were in populated places. Okay, they were in populated places, but their existence was known only to the members of the crypt. The others didn't know of them. Now, what makes the crypt such an important and integral part of Pythagoras' philosophy, and why it plays such an important role in Plato's philosophy, this particular influence. Okay, this particular influence of the crypts and souls, all these things, they play a very, very important part in Plato's philosophy. Apart from deductive reasoning and geometry, these are the very big influences that you'll see in Plato. That's why we are talking about them so much. Okay. Uh, if you look at what Pythagoras said, he believed that members okay, this, please remember this. This is a very, very important point when it comes to understanding Plato. Okay, now it doesn't matter that it's a different matter that he believed that there is soul, that there is life after death. and that people are reborn. That is one kind of belief. But this is a very different kind of belief. And that is what led to the formation of the crypts. One might ask, why a crypt? Why should you form a crypt? Why should you be secretive if anybody is going to be reborn again? Okay, if anybody is going to be reborn again, let them be reborn. If people are going to die, they'll die. So why have these crypts? That is the question, isn't it? Why should you have these crypts? Now, for Pythagoras, the members of the crypt were born as soulmates. See, soulmates, please don't use our commonsensical notion. Okay, we talk about it in terms of married people. Okay, or people who are about to get married, or people who are betrothed, or people who are in love and they say we are soulmates. He's not talking about the opposite sexes being soulmate. Okay, he's not talking about that. That is a very modern kind of a usage. What he is actually talking about is that different people become soulmates. Now, what you have to understand is the plethora or the multiplicity of crypts that he created was due to the fact that he identified people who could be like blood brothers. And they were blood brothers due to the commonality of interests and intensity that they had in shared beliefs. Okay, so he said people will be like blood brothers. So what made him categorize people as blood brothers? They were blood brothers because of the commonality of interests that they had, whatever that may be. Okay, usually, not usually, it was definitely in seeking knowledge. But he was aware that knowledge was multifaceted and different people could want to deal with different facets of knowledge. So the blood brothers were those who had commonality of interests in subjects or facets of knowledge and the intensity that they had. Okay, some people have intense beliefs. Okay, in shared beliefs. Shared beliefs is if you and I share a belief and it's very intense. If it is intense, that means it is extremely strong, unshakable. These were people who were blood brothers. And on the basis of that, he created crypts, and these people actually had a practice which was used by the black people in America. Are you aware of how the blacks in America, or the African Americans as they are called now, how do they address each other? Any idea? Even if somebody doesn't know that man. Hmm?
Maybe they are same race, no? They are came from as slaves.
No, so but how do they address each other?
Brothers, huh?
Ah, brother. They address each other as brother. Okay, so I have some black friends from Cameroon and Somalia and Ethiopia. And they're very fond of me because I just used to do one thing. Whenever I met them, I used to call them brother. There is this chap called Herman too. Very nice man. I call him Brother Herman. So if you do that, then they take it as an honor and they'll bestow the same honor on you. And he addresses me as Brother Satish. Okay, even when he writes emails, he writes, Dear Brother Satish. So they say brother. Okay, and they also had a practice at one time, which is not there anymore. You know, at the height of the discrimination, when these things were happening, what the black people used to do is slash their wrists. One person will slash his wrist, the other person will slash his wrist. While they are bleeding, they put the thing like this. Okay, so the blood meets, and then they used to say, We are blood brothers. That is how the Africans built solidarity among themselves. Okay, they built that among themselves. Strangely enough, that is the practice that was supposed to have been followed by Pythagoras. While nobody has actually seen it, almost everybody who documents the crypts of Pythagoras claims that they had this as one of their rituals. They had apparently many rituals to keep them as brothers, not just in this life. If after you die and you're born again, pardon me for that, if you're born again, then you would be born as blood brothers. You would again be in the same crypt. That is what he meant by this. That is why the practice is called an occult practice. And Pythagoras didn't do black magic, which is what Akshay, Banamati, and Chetabadi are. Okay, they are black magic. Since you know this, do you know where the world's most what, I don't know how to put this, uh, ghostly places.
No, sir.
No,
I don't know. I don't know.
Uh, there is a town in Rajasthan, not a town, a village. I have forgotten the name of that village. It is believed to be the most ghostly town or village inhabited, in the world. So much so that the government of India has banned people going to that village. Is anyone aware of this?
No, sir.
Don't know, sir.
It is true. I'm not
Is it
making
still believed, sir? Is
huh?
it still believed today?
Hmm.
Is it still believed today?
Even today. Even today.
I'm just surprising, sir. The government
Really very
is banning.
surprising. Huh?
No, people are not allowed to
Not.
go there in the evenings. There people don't live. And in fact, somebody wanted to shoot a documentary. That's how this came to light. Okay, they wanted to shoot a documentary for Prime Video, and apparently they had to ask the governments of Rajasthan and the government of India. They had to pursue them for 8 months before they could get the permission to shoot a documentary of the place. And it is uninhabited totally right now.
What did they find, sir?
They didn't
The
find
people
anything
could.
because they didn't go in the night. They were
Sir,
allowed only 1.5 hours.
sir, is it Kuldara?
I don't think so. I don't remember. It might be. But it's a place in India. It's in Rajasthan. It is considered to be the most haunted place in the world. Haunted. That is the word I was looking for. Yeah. It is the most haunted place in the world. That's what people say. I find it difficult to believe, but I saw the documentary and people do not even go by that village, the local people, even during the day. They rather take a very circuitous route. They avoid the village, which is crazy. And in another documentary, I saw that in Telangana, there is this place near Mehbubabad. Again, I don't remember the name of the village, where nobody except the inhabitants of the village go. It is believed that everybody in the village practices Chetabadi. So nobody goes to that village. And the people from that village don't come out. I don't know about this one. I'm not very sure what it is like, but I have definitely seen the documentary on that. And mind you, it really does look a bit scary even during the day. That is one place I will not be in the night, the one in Rajasthan. I will not be there in the night even if there were 10,000 other people with me. It's that scary to look at. It's really scary. Very scary. Hmm. My pastime is to search for horror, haunted, and these kind of things. Anyway, so let's get back to Pythagoras. So he believed that people would be born as blood brothers again and again in different lives. So that is the purpose behind creating a crypt, and creating not just one crypt, but creating many crypts so that different people in different crypts. Sorry, different people in different crypts would be born again and again as blood brothers. Now, what is the purpose of that? Nobody knows. I mean, why should you be born as blood brothers? What will you achieve? That is something that nobody knows. Okay, so this belief, all these things, life, soul, life after death, and rebirth, and the necessity to form crypts and to be born as soulmates again and again. Soulmates, please don't read the usual romance kind of meaning that is associated with that. It's not a romantic thing. The usual meaning of romance. Actually, you have a movement in France which is called Romanticism, and people who belong to that were called the Romantics. One of the people who is considered to be a romantic is Rousseau, but that kind of romanticism that you find in first in France and then later on in Germany, that romanticism is not romance like we see in our good old films. Okay, people falling hopelessly in love and all that kind of thing. The only thing that is common is people here are hopelessly in love, whereas the philosophical romanticism is hopelessness. It is a pessimistic movement. It doesn't have very high hopes for people. Okay, it doesn't see the human civilization progressing wonderfully. Okay, in fact, it doesn't believe in that progress at all. Those who are diehard romantics. Anyway, so these are the things that we should know about Pythagoras: deductive reasoning, geometry, his idea of souls, his idea of life after death, and his idea of rebirth, and the idea that you have to form crypts so that you can be born again and again as soul brothers. These are ideas that had influenced Plato. Not to forget the fact that his geometry also had a very, very big influence on Plato.
Sir,
Yes, Kirti, I saw you unmute yourself, so please ask me.
sir, could you please explain me the difference between the deductive and inductive method in short, if possible?
Why is it not possible? Uh, I will explain it to you in great detail when we come to Aristotle, the difference. Because if Plato is a deductive, a person who used the deductive method, then Aristotle is a person who used the inductive method. Okay? The difference is there in the word induce and deduce, right? What is a deduction? I told you the other day. Okay. Uh, it is a series of possible conclusions that you draw and finally arrive at a conclusion. Okay. Which is the general commonsensical usage of deductive method. I had told you about crime solving. Were you there in that class?
No, sir. I couldn't attend that.
Yeah. So I had given a example of how crimes are solved through deductive methods. Okay, where you look at a crime scene, you look at what has happened, let's say to a murder, you look at the clues that are available, whatever the clues may be, and then from that you start deducing and slowly building the profile of a killer and why he kills. Is this a serial killer or is this not a serial killer? Is somebody who just kills or who just killed for some reason? Or is he a serial killer, one who has that pathological urge to kill? That is also a deductive method. It uses deductive reasoning. But mathematically speaking, that is not how one looks at the deductive method. The deductive method is represented as an inverted triangle. Since you wanted it in short, I'm giving it to you in short, and I will give you the long-winded explanation till you curse me when we go to Aristotle.
Okay, sir.
Okay, right
Okay, sir.
now I am giving you the short explanation. The short explanation is that it is an inverted triangle. Why? Because in a deductive method, which is geometrical primarily or particularly, and mathematical generally, begins with a generalization, okay, and ends with a particular conclusion. So that day, the example that I had given was all trees are green in color. So that is why the line on the top, that's the inverted triangle, because all is the generalization, right?
Yes, sir.
All trees are green in color. This is, you're now looking at a particular tree. Okay. This is green in color. And the conclusion, the tip of the inverted triangle. This is a tree. That is deductive reasoning, mathematically and geometrically. It can be totally different, like I told you, when you're solving a crime and things like that. We do deductions all the time. We do deductions all the time. It can be about particular people. Okay. From the questions that Rachna asks me about various things which are based in mathematics, I guess she did at least MPC
Yes,
in
sir.
her intermediate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that is also a deduction. So we're not talking about that kind of deduction. Okay. We are talking
Okay, sir.
about starting from a generalization down to a particular conclusion, which proves the general. The opposite of that is induced. You must have heard that a person who suffers head injuries is is put into an induced coma. Have you heard that usage?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. So what are they doing? He is not going to go into coma. He's suffered head injuries, but he's not going to go into coma.
There is a probability.
No,
Not
not at all. But they believe that they meaning the medical doctors, they believe, and if you think medical doctor is an oxymoron, it is not, because even idiots like me are called doctor. Okay. Uh, so a medical doctor or a team of medical doctors will assess the situation, and they will believe that, it is better to send this person, make him, in medical terminology, make him comatose, so that the brain has a better chance of recovery. Okay, so what they do is they induce a coma. And how do you induce a coma? How do you send somebody into a coma? It has to be done in a very, very measured fashion. It has to be done through injection of sodium pentothal or dexamethasone or any of these kind of things that can make you lose your consciousness. Okay, so it is done very methodically by calculating exactly how much dosage do you want, because you have to bring the person back out of the coma again. You're not going to like put him in a coma and leave that person there. You're only trying to induce a coma to make that person recover as soon as possible. So sometimes that person is sent into a coma for 2 days, sometimes for 4 days, sometimes for a month. And if you're Michael Schumacher, you don't know what happened to him. Have you ever heard of Michael Schumacher?
Yes, sir.
Ah,
no, sir.
no. What did you hear of Michael Schumacher, Akshay?
While he was skating, he
Hmm?
met with accident and he's in coma, sir.
Aha. You're a Formula One fan?
No, sir.
Then how did you get this information?
By reading, yes.
Yeah. Michael Schumacher was actually a Formula One driver, a legend, an absolute legend, one of the greatest talents. And he met with an accident while skiing. While skiing, he met with an accident, And this man was sent into a coma, and after that, we don't know what happened to him. The family has said, please leave us alone. Don't ask us about him. Right now, his son is racing uh, Formula One cars from this year onwards. Anyway, so inducing is to put something. In the case of an engine, okay, you have what is called induction. Induction is where you send the fuel and air mixture into the cylinder of the engine. Okay, that is to induct, to put inside. Okay,
Okay,
if
sir.
tomorrow you're going to get picked up by a multinational company, then they'll have an induction program which will last for anywhere between 3 days to 1 week. And what it means is that you will be inducted into the ethics and practices of the company. You'll be familiarized with how the company is working. Okay, that is another meaning of induce, right? But when you're talking about inductive reasoning, an inductive reasoning is the opposite of the deductive reasoning. If the deductive reasoning is an inverted triangle, inductive reasoning is a proper triangle, which means you begin with a particular instance and reach a generalized conclusion. You begin, let us say we stick to the example of trees. It isn't the greatest of examples. 1 second, just a second. No, let it be. For some strange reason, the head of the department is calling me when I'm in class. So the thing that you need to understand is very simple. If we stick to that example of trees, you'll say, this is a tree, starting with the particular. Okay, this is a tree. This is green in color, and therefore all trees are green in color. That is what we find in inductive reasoning. Okay, so it is a triangle which is not inverted, but a proper triangle. Because you started with one tree and you have generalized that all of them are basically, all trees are green. If you're thinking seriously about it, you'll get a lot of doubts.
Okay, sir.
Are you getting any doubts with the example that I've given you?
Uh, Right now, no doubt, sir, but I understood what you explained regarding
But
inductive and deductive.
think about it, you'll get lots of doubts.
Yeah, sir.
I'll tell you what doubt you'll get. What if the tree, something is not green? Hmm? That's some song that was, okay. So you will get doubts. So that is why I said I'll go into great detail. Not great
Okay,
detail,
sir.
I'll go into detail. You must understand, do you know Aristotle was Plato's student?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Do you know he
Socrates is a teacher of
disagreed?
Plato.
Sorry?
Hmm.
Sir, Socrates is the
Disagreed?
teacher of Plato. I thought you would be
No,
saying
but do
this
you
thing.
know that Aristotle disagreed with
Plato.
Plato over almost everything?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hmm. Have
but in
you? Hmm? Hmm?
apology, in the book Apology,
Hmm.
he supported no sir. Ante
No, 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 no.
uh,
He,
he wrote about Aristotle no sir in that book
who?
Plato.
Which book?
Apology.
Apollo Zeus. I'm not
Plato's no sir.
apology.
Yeah.
No, no. See, that is okay. That is okay. In apology, he does talk about Aristotle,
Uh,
but you must remember that they disagreed. I mean, Aristotle disagreed with
yeah.
a lot.
Maybe Plato is ideology ki, and Aristotle may be different. Yeah.
Hmm. Aristotle made a very famous statement. Plato is very dear to me, but dearer still is the truth. We are back to that word truth. Somebody
Mm,
hated it. Who was it who hated it? Rachna. What is this with capital T and small t and all that kind of thing? That's what Rachna asked me one day. What is,
yeah.
yeah. So Aristotle said Plato is very dear to me, but
Mm,
dearer still is the truth with a capital T. And you'll understand this why capital T, and you'll also understand the difference between deductive and inductive methods properly when we compare and contrast Plato and Aristotle. That is what you have to
mm.
remember. Okay, so we are,
I,
yeah,
sir,
yes,
I
ma'am.
think Aristotle is realistic and Plato is idealist. Is it
Mm,
true?
it is not. That is the popular belief.
Mm,
Okay, and that popular belief actually came out of a painting by the Renaissance painter Raphael. Have you heard of him?
mm,
Raphael?
no, Raphael. No, sir.
Please don't pronounce that name like the stupid Americans do. They call him Raphael. Okay,
Mm,
it's Raphael. The French say Rafale. Okay, the French basically say Rafale. That is the aircraft that we are getting, the Rafale aircraft. That is nothing but Raphael in Latin. And Raphael was a Renaissance painter, along with people like Leonardo da Vinci, then Michelangelo. Along with them, Raphael was a Renaissance painter. There is this very famous painting of his, which is still there in some museum. It was for a long time in the Vatican, but I think it's now moved out of the Vatican into some secure museum in Rome. He painted a picture of Aristotle and Plato. And you would see in that picture, Plato is looking at the sky, the starry sky. Okay. He's looking at this star-studded sky and pointing like that at it. Okay. And you find that Aristotle is looking at the earth, looking down, not up like this, but down and pointing at the earth. So people believe that Aristotle is a realist and Plato is an idealist. In a way, they are right. But in the larger scheme of things, Plato is not an idealist as you think he is. Plato is an idealist. Absolutely no doubt about that. But what is our understanding of idealism? Something which is unreachable. It's good, it's great, but we can't reach it. But that's not what Plato has. Plato's idealism is actually called philosophical idealism. Okay? And so, if you read Plato, you know, all this that I have written here is to make a point about Plato. Okay? Which is Plato believes that the ideal is the real. And for those of us who are fed on a staple diet of international relations, okay, where we are told there are two schools in the international relations. One is the idealist school and the other is the realist school. So we see them in binary opposition. That which is ideal cannot be real. Why? Idealists during the interwar period, the interwar period is the period between the First World War and the Second World War. Okay, there were idealists like Bertrand Russell. He was the most vocal of idealists. He was a pacifist. He did not believe in war. He believed in the equality of all. So he actually appealed for peace and said, let's not fight. There is nothing in this world that cannot be settled with a dialogue. There's nothing in the world that cannot be settled with a dialogue. Talk, settle the problem. You don't have to go to war. To a certain extent, Gandhi, to a certain extent only. Later on, I'll tell you why. Gandhi is also into that category of idealism to a certain extent only. He was also a believer in non-violence, and war is violence. So it's basically people like these who were branded as idealists. Okay, they were branded as idealists compared to the early realists. Okay, there are different schools of realism. The early realists are two people. You must have heard of them. Have you heard of E.H. Carr? E.H.C.A.R.R. Carr? No?
No, sir.
Yeah.
You have not heard of Reinhold Niebuhr?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You're doing international relations, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. EH car. I know.
Mm.
Some definitions he gave about international relations. In international relations. Yes.
Have you been taught this? These two people, E.H. Carr and Reinhold Niebuhr? Hmm?
No, sir.
EH car no, but Reinhold Niebuhr new name I think.
Okay, so these two people are called. You are not being taught that in MA also? Anyway, that will become bad. Leave it, leave it. I got the answer. Reinhold Niebuhr and E.H. Carr were the early realists. Okay, then the most well-known, this person I hope you've heard of, the most well-known of all,
Hans J. Morgenthau.
hmm, this man is a post-Second World War realist who defined realism as national interest. And after that, you have the neo-realist school. Have you done that?
Yes, sir. No, sir, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. So you have all these people who have posited a binary opposition between idealism and realism. Okay. And that is due to international relations. But if you were to actually look at philosophy, in philosophy, there is no binary opposition always. Not always. There are some people who might want to use it, they will use it. That is up to them. See, philosophy gives you the freedom to use a category the way you want it, as long as you're consistent in the use of that category. Okay, so if you come to Plato, Plato is somebody who believed that the ideal is the real. Okay, that is what you'll find in Plato. That which is not ideal is not real. That which is not ideal is, and I promised Akshay very long ago while I was doing Parmenides that I will tell you the meaning of what actual is and why we have to use that word at all when we do Plato. You remember that, Akshay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm not going to start that now. Okay, it says 10:33. I actually wanted to do a bit of Plato today, but it's okay. We We're not talking rubbish. Hopefully, at least I think but most people think I talk rubbish all the time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry?
I said no, sir.
You said no, sir.
You don't talk rubbish.
I don't know. I see myself as a rubbish dump. So everything that comes out of me is rubbish. Anyway, okay. So we don't know about the holidays situation. I don't know if tomorrow the holidays are beginning for us or not. The papers today say that all educational institutions will be closed and up to 31st of May, and it talks about schools and colleges, but there's no mention of universities. And anyway, after the government gives an order, the registrar has to give an order. That is usually the procedure that is followed. You can't go by a newspaper announcement. We have to receive an order from the governor, from the registrar. And once we receive that order, then we'll know. So I don't think our vacation will begin tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll go to Plato straight away, and we'll see the influences of Parmenides and to a certain extent Zeno and Pythagoras. Now there's a reason why I spoke to you about Parmenides and Zeno before I spoke about Pythagoras, even though Pythagoras comes before them chronologically. I will, this is somebody really great. Uh, Parmenides, and I talked about them before for a reason, and that I'll explain tomorrow. Why have I talked about Plato later? About Pythagoras later, and initially about Parmenides. Okay, and then we'll start off with, that'll be the beginning of Plato. That's not something else, and then we begin with Plato. That's how we'll begin with Plato. All right.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.